This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter. I'm going to welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. Now, of course, the honorable mention for today, October 27th, is David Freese actually hitting that dramatic home run in the 2011 World Series in Game 6. Yes, that World Series Game 6 is actually much more powerful than I anticipated. I mean, the Cardinals twice could have been eliminated with a strike. Twice were down to their final strike, and the Texas Rangers would have knocked them out and win the World Series, their first in franchise history. But no, they failed miserably, especially with David Freese's 2-run triple in the ninth. That the outfielder was playing too far in, and it went over his head, and that was a triple. And Freese, of course, hitting the home run to center field that got Joe Buck to say, "We will see you tomorrow night." Well, speaking of that saying, "We will see you tomorrow night," this is what the series is. 20 years prior and 30 years ago today was the day that one of the greatest World Series of all time ended in 1991. The 91 World Series was a thrilling one at that. I mean, when you have the Braves and the Twins, two teams that were actually last place in their respective divisions in 1990, teams that actually pulled their socks up and took part in one of the greatest World Series of all time. In fact, ESPN in 2003 said it was the best World Series of all time, but in 2020 they changed their minds and put it at number 2 behind the 1975 World Series, and I touched about that with Fisk's home run. I mean, it's funny. The funny thing is that no league champion prior to 1991 actually finished the previous season in last place. Not even the 69 Mets. I believe they were 8th in the NL at the time. But anyhow, it was pathetic. The good news for the Braves by being last place was that they managed to get the number 1 pick in the draft, and they took Chipper Jones and not Todd Van Poppel, who won it. Money up the Yangtze. So anyway, the 91 World Series had a lot of things going for it. 5 of the 7 runs were scored by single run. 4 of them were decided in the final at bat, and 3 of them went to extra innings. There was a lot of suspense of the outcome, especially in Game 7. The 91 World Series has the most innings by a 7-game World Series with 69. It's actually true. So that's almost 10 innings per game on a 7-game series. That actually is tied with the 1924 World Series with that mark, which is weird. So the Twins in 87 were the champions, but then they basically went flat. They were last in the AL West for the first time since 1982, but thanks to a breakout season by pitchers like Scott Erickson and Kevin Tapani, and picking up Jack Morris from the Detroit Tigers in free agency, the Twins looked good, and even Chuck Knobloch was playing well at second base. More on him later. The Twins beat the White Sox by 8 games to win the division. And then, of course, they took care of the Toronto Blue Jays in the ALCS in 5 games, which pissed me off. Atlanta had a lot of problems, and were last in the NL West 3 times in a row from 88 to 90. But in 91, despite the fact they were 1 game below 500 at the All-Star break, the Braves had a second-half surge, not really making many trades, all that, kind of like whole thing. But they got the division title on the second last day of the year. The 91 Braves had the best season by a Braves team since 1957. It was also helped by the fact that Terry Pendleton and Tom Glavine were playing their hearts out. And no, Greg Maddux wasn't part of this 91 team. That would be 93 when he came to the Braves. Atlanta and Pittsburgh had a tough NLCS. Pittsburgh thought they had Atlanta beat, but no, they didn't. John Smoltz pitched his heart out in that NLCS to give the Braves the first time in the World Series in 3 decades. So anyway, Game 1 of the World Series, the 91 World Series, started October 19th. Steve Palermo threw out the first pitch. he was retired as an umpire, but he actually got injured by a gunshot trying to come to the aid of a robbery victim in 1981. Anyway, Jack Morris, the Minnesota native, came up against Charlie Liebrandt. Jack Morris was solid. In 1984, he won 2 games in the World Series, helped the Tigers win the title, and also was a star pitcher for the ALCS against the Blue Jays. The Braves went with Liebrandt, who was the only Brave with series exposure. He was a member of Kansas City squad in 1985, to my chagrin, of course. He knew about the Twins and all that. He actually used to face Dan Gladden, Kirby Puckett, and Ken Hrbek with regularity. He was 15-13, but the Braves needed him. It was a tough game, all of that. Minnesota won by a score of 5-2 in the only game that was decided by more than 2 runs. It was amazing what the Twins could do. Game 2 saw Kevin Tapani and Tom Glavine go tete-a-tete with each other. Minnesota won the game 3-2. Of course, there was a controversy as Lonnie Smith reached on an error, and then for some reason he was out 2 seconds later, as it was revealed that Ken Hrbek decided to yank Mr. Smith's foot off the bag, which subsequently umpire Drew Cobble didn't see. It was terrible and all that. Hrbek was hated in Atlanta, all that. But anyway, Scott Leos, who was not really a good hitter, actually hit the winning home run to make it 3-2, and the Twins were up 2-0. On to Atlanta. It would be Scott Erickson versus Steve Avery. Avery was a good pitcher for the Braves in the NLCS, pitching 2 shutout games. So, anyway, it was a tight game. The Braves looked like they were going to win the game by a score of 4-1 until the 7th. Kirby Puckett home run made a home run to make it 4-2. And then Brian Harper came on, and after he reached an error, Avery was sent to the showers for Alejandro Pena. And Chili Davis, who was pinch hitting for pitcher Steve Bedrosian, hit a home run to tie the game at 4. The game remained tied into extra innings. A lot of substitutions and double switches. Tom Kelly only had 3 players left on his squad. Ricky Aguilera was the only one who was willing to play. The other 2 who he didn't have were Jack Morris and Kevin Tapani, his starters. So anyway, there was a lot of problems. So after Hrbek struck out looking, Atlanta decided to intentionally walk Puckett to get to the pitcher spot, which meant that Aguilera had to pinch hit. Rick Aguilera would pinch hit, but he flew out to center field, leaving the bases loaded and the game deadlocked. Aguilera in the bottom of the 12th did okay, but then Mark Lemke got a big base hit to get David Justice across the plate, and the Braves won the game 5-4. Jim Clancy, former Blue Jays pitcher, actually got the win in this one. It lasted 4 hours, 4 minutes, which was actually the record. It was broken in 2005 by Game 3 of the 2005 World Series, which ran for more than 5 hours. On to Game 4, and Atlanta and Minnesota were pitching it. Actually, Jack Morris versus John Smoltz. Smoltz was making his first start of the World Series, and he looked pretty good. After a Mike Pagliaro home run to make it 2-1 Twins. The Twins needed to go for more runs. They decided to pinch hit for Jack Morris, even though that he was decent after 6 innings. But Lonnie Smith hit a home run off Carl Willis to tie the game. In the bottom of the ninth, Mark Lemke had a triple. Jeff Blauser was walked intentionally to set up a double play to force extra innings. Bobby Cox decided to send Francisco Cabrera to the on-deck circle. But after Blauser's intentional walk, Tom Kelly decided to bring Bedrosian to pitch. Cabrera was then subsequently taken out for Jerry Willard, who hit a fly ball to right field to Shane Mack. Lemke tagged and broke for the plate. Maxwell beat Lemke to the plate, but Lemke slid around the tag attempt by Brian Harper and tied it safe. Harper and Bedrosian were upset over this, thinking that he was out. But Tim McCarver said why Lemke was safe because the play on the plate was not a forced play. Harper needed to tag Lemke with the ball, whether it was in his hand or his glove. Harper did have the ball in his possession. He didn't with the catcher's mitt because the ball was in the mitt. If he had it in his arm, he would have been out. It made it 2 games all. But in Game 5, Atlanta crushed Kevin Tapani. It was the only game that wasn't really close. Atlanta would win the game 14-5. That set up Game 6. All that. Minnesota needed to win at home. Steve Avery would face Scott Erickson. But the Twins would score 2 runs in the first inning after Kirby Puckett got a big triple to make it 1-0. Then Shane Mack hit a broken bat single to make it 2-0. Kirby Puckett made an amazing catch off of Ron Gant in the 3rd inning off the plexiglass barrier. It was huge. So the game ended up being 3-3 late in the game. And then it was the 11th inning. Charlie Liebrand was sent to the mound to face Kirby Puckett. Kirby said he was going to bunt to make sure that Chili Davis could do something. And then Chili Davis said, "Bunt my ass, hit it out, and let's go home." Puckett decided to take a few pitches. He was known as a first pitch swinger, swinging at the first pitch, but he decided to take some pitches. It was 2 balls, 1 strike, and Kirby Puckett hit the ball into the left center field seats to give Minnesota the win and a Game 7. Jack Buck famously called the home run with the line, "And we'll see you tomorrow night," which has been parodied a couple times. It was amazing. Kirby Puckett just did it. The first Game 7. The first Game 7 was 87. Ironically, that was when Minnesota played in it. He actually almost hit for the cycle. He was a double shy. Aguilera got the win. Liebrand got the loss. Liebrand was not too happy about that. The worst part for Liebrand is that he gave up that game-winning hit to Dave Winfield in Game 6, of the 1992 World Series. So, yeah. So Jack Morris was ready to go against John Smoltz. And Game 7 on this day, October 25th, 1991, it was one for the ages. It was huge. The Twins had a good opportunity in the bottom of the 3rd when Dan Gladden doubled and got to 3rd base on a fly by Knobloch. Unfortunately, Kirby Puckett swung and missed, and Smoltz struck him out to end the inning. Braves put someone in scoring position in the 5th inning. Mark Lemke got to third base, but Pendleton and Gant both got out by Morris, so that was it. And then the 8th inning, things started to take a turn. Morris and Smoltz were battling tooth and nail, and then Lonnie Smith hit a single. With Pendleton up, Cox called for a hit and run, and Smith took off. Pendleton hit a fly ball into the gap in left center field for a double, which could have scored Smith. Somehow Smith actually got to third base. I don't know why. Because it was a hit and run. However, as he ran at second, Smith hesitated. As it turned out, he got spit by a fake by Chuck Knobloch at second and Greg Gagne at shortstop. And Smith may have fallen for it. Smith was trying to follow the trajectory of the ball and see if either Puckett or Gladden would have caught it. Anyway, the rule, and Pendleton's double, Jack Morris actually thought he struck him out to swing and miss a pitch in the dirt, but Pendleton allegedly said that it was foul tipped. Do you know who the home plate umpire was for that game? For Game 7 of the 91 World Series? Our old friend Don Dankinger. I can't believe it. I thought Dankinger was basically done for after the 85 World Series. But yeah, he was a home plate umpire. I didn't even realize that. Holy fuck. Anyway, both runners were still in scoring position, and a hit could have did it. Morris got Ron Gant to ground out the first, and the runners couldn't advance. David Justice was ready to go. Jack Morris said that he didn't like his manager walking out to the mound thinking he was being rude, but no, it was there to discuss strategy. And they decided to walk David Justice intentionally to get to Sid Bream, who was struggling. Bream would ground one up the first base line. Ken Hrbek knew he had to throw to home to retire Smith. And then Harper threw it back to Hrbek to get Bream, who couldn't really base run. He was one of the slowest base runners in the league. The funny thing is that A, the Braves didn't have anybody reach base after the 8th inning, which was weird. And B, Sid Bream, even though he was slow, actually scored the winning run of the 92 NLCS to send the Braves to the World Series against the Jays. So, how ironic. But in the bottom of the 8th, Al Newman came in to pinch run for Randy Bush, who had pinch hit for Greg Gagne. I know that's not Fern Gagne's son, the famous wrestling promoter. So anyway, Cox decided to get rid of Smoltz for Mike Stanton. Not that Mike Stanton, like John Carlos Stanton. No, Mike Stanton, the pitcher, who played for the Yankees as well. Stanton intentionally walked Puckett to load the bases. And then Hrbek to pitch to Hrbek. Stanton got Hrbek to hit a line drive to Lemke, who doubled up Knobloch. No score. Braves went down in order, and the Twins had a chance to win. Chili Davis got a single, and Jarvis Brown came in to pinch run for Chili Davis, who's not really a good runner. Harper tried to move him over with a bunt down the line, and Stanton didn't play the bunt perfectly, so it's first and second. Stanton's misstep actually got him to strain something in his back and had to be removed for Alejandro Pena. Pena did get a ground ball double play from Shane Mack to record the 2 outs. And then after intentionally walking Mike Pecoraro, he struck out Paul Sorrento for the last out, marking the 3rd time in the series that the game went to extra innings. Morris did not want to come out of the game. So Morris was still effective. He retired Blauser, Smith, and Pendleton in order. And then came the bottom of the 10th. Dan Gladden came in and hit a fly ball to left field, and it bounced in front of Brian Hunter. Gladden got to second base. Knobloch executed the sacrifice bunt to put the winning run on third with 1 out. Cox decided to intentionally walk Puckett, and then it was up to Herbeck. But Cox decided to call for another intentional walk because the double play would have ended the inning. Jarvis Brown was due up because he pinch ran for the DH Chili Davis. And Kelly already used 4 of his 7 players on the bench. In the top half, he had to insert Scott Leos in place at shortstop for Sorrento. And there's 2 guys left. Junior Ortiz, who was a backup catcher, and Gene Larkin, who was a utility man. Kelly knew he decided to use Gene Larkin because he was a utility man, and with the fact he was a DH, even though he was badly hurt, Larkin didn't have to play the field. So Larkin, on the first pitch, drove a ball to deep left center, which would have been a sac fly, but it did bounce for a base hit over the drawn-in outfield. So Gene Larkin is the unknown hero of the series, scoring Dan Gladden. The Twins won the World Series for the second time in their time in Minnesota. It was amazing. Gene Larkin did that. And this was not the first time that Game 7 of the World Series ended up 1-0. The last time was 1962 with the Yankees beating the Giants. McCovey's line drive, if it was 2 feet higher, the Giants would have won that World Series. It was immortalized in a Charlie Brown cartoon a while later. But anyway, this was the first World Series to end in an extra inning Game 7 since 1924, when Washington, who was actually the precursor to the Minnesota Twins before they moved to Minnesota in 1961, won it over the New York Giants. Ironically, ESPN's one of the best World Series of all time. The Marlins would do such a thing, winning Game 7 in extra innings on home turf in 97, beating Cleveland and all that. The 2016 World Series went to Game 7, but the visitors won. That was the Cubs over the Indians. The game set a World Series record for the longest scoreless tie in a Game 7. It actually wasn't the record for longest scoreless tie in a World Series game. Game 6 of the 1956 World Series went 9 2/3 without a run being scored until the winning run was scored by I believe the Dodgers. Yeah, the Dodgers. But then the Yankees woke up with a 9-0 win in Game 7, if memory serves me right. So this was the second time in 5 seasons that every game in a World Series was won by a home team. Well, home team in a 7-game World Series. The Twins did this against the Cardinals in 1987. It was replicated in 2001 when the Diamondbacks won Game 7 at home. After they and the Yankees went to Game 7. But that will be decided. We'll talk about that in November. But, of course, you got to realize how crazy it is for the Minnesota Twins. You know, their postseason history, their World Series history, in fact. The Twins went to 3 World Series as the Minnesota Twins, 65, 87, 91. If you look at their home-away splits, at home, El Perfecto, except for 1 loss. On the road, they have never won a road game in the World Series. The Twins, let me repeat, the Twins have never won on the road in a World Series game. Never. 0. Which was shocking. And all that. I mean, the Twins surprised everyone. And all that. Well, of course, that 1 loss for the Twins on home turf was Game 7 of the 65 World Series. And ironically, all 3 World Series the Twins have played went to a Game 7. But after the Twins' triumph, there were 4 other teams that followed the previous season's last place finishes within a division with a World Series appearance. The 93 Phillies, who lost to the Blue Jays thanks to Joe Carter. The 98 Padres, who were swept by the Yankees, the powerful 98 Yankees. The 2007 Rockies, who were swept by the Red Sox. And the 2008 Rays, who lost in 5 to the Phillies. But the 2013 Red Sox, after being last place in the AL East in 2012, actually won the World Series. Tim McCarver actually, after Game 7, said that Atlanta fans should be happy because this is an excellent team and they will be around for some time. In fact, McCarver was correct. The Braves won 14 straight division titles, although it's kind of tainted because the 94 season was strike shortened and didn't end, and the Expos were in first place. The Braves would get to the World Series in 92, losing to the Jays, and then would win the 95 World Series before losing in 96 and 99. The Twins kind of decreased and all that. Dan Gladden left for Detroit. Jack Morris left to Toronto. Greg Gagne and Chili Davis left after 92. Brian Harper was done after 93. Herbeck's production hurt him and retired in 94. The Twins would trade Erickson and Tapani in 95, and Kirby Puckett retired because of glaucoma. Knobloch was the last hitter of the 91 team to remain in Minnesota, getting a trade after the 97 season to the Yankees. Aguilera would be the last 91 Twin to play for the Twins in 1999. Fay Vincent presided this as commissioner. This was the last World Series he did because the owners forced him to resign near the end of the 92 season. So anyway, this was actually the most recent appearance by a Minnesota team in the Big Four in the final round. The Timberwolves got to the conference final in 2004, but didn't get to the final. The Vikings have reached the NFC title game in 98, 2000, 2009, 2017 without a chance at the World Series. And the Minnesota Wild got to the Stanley Cup conference final, but lost to the Ducks. Jack Buck, this would be the last time he would broadcast the World Series for either TV or radio. CBS replaced him with Sean McDonough. And then Jack Buck went back to being the lead guy for the St. Louis Cardinals. He would call postseason action for the Cardinals, but they would never get to the World Series. And he succumbed to lung cancer in 2002. Baseball had a good reboot. It was one of the best World Series of all time in 1991. And it ended fittingly with a tight 1-0 game. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.